All right, hey guys. So we're gonna do a individual VOD review. So this is a VOD review of DrBones, which is in the F6 position on Team One. He's the main tank on Reinhardt currently. And DrBones is he was 3600, dropped to 33, so I averaged around 3400. And he said that his Moira player, which I guess is Ultra, is actually a DPS player, and so he didn't get very many heals, and he's just like to know what he could do with the resources available to him. And maybe like what could he do more of, just like for his team. Very beginning round on Rialto.
That's the best you can do.
Okay, so a lot of playing main tank and even more so on Reinhardt than on Orisa or Winston. But a lot of playing main tank is knowing what resources are available to you, so you know what the ebb and flow of the gameplay can be. Because a lot of Overwatch is ebb and flow. You move in, you use cooldowns, you do what you can, you kind of come out. And even on an even more micro scale than that is during your process of moving in with these cooldowns, you have this little ebb and flow of W and S, or this ebb and flow of positioning to kind of inch your way forward a little bit. That's an interesting. Just pause the door bolt midair. Is that gonna hit anybody? No. On your team right now, what you have as far as like what you have is you have bubbles. One is you have Zarya bubbles, so that's one thing you can move in on. You have a plethora of heals in both Ana and Moira, which are arguably two of the highest healing per minute support characters in the game. And then you have these two DPS. So essentially with this composition, what you have is you have a lot of heals and then off tank that does have an ability to kind of help you maintain a front line. However, you also have two DPS that are very in and out. They're very like use cooldowns, get in, poke around, get out very quickly, and then we're useless for the next 2, 3, 4 seconds, or we're poking uselessly. Right, either way, is kind of the position here. So when that's your case, when you don't have a lot of damage in your front line, but you do have a lot of sustain, you kind of have to realize that you're going to have to do quite a bit of work as far as positioning is concerned, but you're also going to have to realize when your DPS go in, because whenever they go in, you're going to also have to go in. Because it's the only way you're going to get team burst potential is if this Doomfist and this Genji go in and you're also going in with one or both of them, hopefully also with Bubble and maybe a Moira healing orb. But that's really the position that you're being put in. That's the only way you're going to get value. I do want to caution you. This purple is completely avoidable. I want to caution you for swinging out of either frustration or out of just like, I've been holding my shield a long time, I don't know what else to do. Like, there's nothing you can do there, right? You're not swinging at anything. Nothing's gonna come around that corner. Nothing's gonna be on that wall. So I would caution you against that. I would also say at this point, it's fair to say after 3 or 4 balls have gone down that your Zarya doesn't really know what she's doing, right? I think that's fair to say, right? That at this point in time, at least in this very, very opening, that your Zarya so far has bubbled you with no engage, and then I think she self-bubbled in that point in time as well. And then now she's bubbled you on a disengage in which you've already disengaged and are already on the national cover. Now her self-bubble there was not bad at all. She turned her back. She's trying to get you back to the corner that you're already at. Her self-bubble's not bad at all, but the friendly bubble is quite poor. So I think that's fair to say. So because of that, it's going to be even more important that your sustain here is there. And I know you said this guy's DPS, so he doesn't really know what he's doing, but it's going to be important that your sustain here is very important. Now, if you don't have sustain here, then it's going to be massively important that you go in with these 3 or as much and as often as you can and really be a damage dealer. But to do that, because you said the sustain's not there, now that we'll see. But because you say the sustain isn't there, it's going to be extremely important that you hold a lot of natural cover, whether it be this corner or whether the cart moves here and you start trying to play the cart a little bit. It remains to be seen, but whichever one, honestly. But that's very, very important. Okay, we do have to stop getting hit by purples, though. That one was a little bit less avoidable than the last one. What I will say here is I like... You obviously live this. Okay, good. So... your DPS are up top, and hopefully they're calling that they're up top. Now, what I want to see from you, if I'm being honest, okay, is your Moira's over here and your Zarya's over here, and then you have an Ana back there somewhere, right? What I would like to see from you is actually playing on this side of the cart. And the reason I want you to play on this side of the cart is I want you to bait the open space, okay? And I talked about this actually in the team VOD review I did for OUJV just a couple hours ago this morning. Is I want you to bait the open space. Because what I want you to do is I want you to dare them, essentially, to play in this area. Okay? Because you have... if you play this corner here, right? You have a Zarya shooting down this way, and a Moira also kind of shooting down this way, and you're in line of sight of your Ana still. Due to all of this, and then these two are pressuring the top ground and can come down on top whenever they want to. Due to all of this, and this is not really a threat, right? Due to all of this, if you are here and the rest of your team is like here and coming down, you kind of want them to fight in this position, right? You want them here. So you're baiting the open position because they eventually have to move into this. As long as you're staying there, as long as your natural cover and your shield management is there, they cannot kill you off of this. They can't do it unless they move into this open space, which is where you want them to move into. So your DPS are actually doing a pretty good job. They're controlling the high ground. We need to control this area or we're going to lose. So your DPS are doing an okay job. Your Moira's playing the wall, so that's a fine position. Your Zarya is kind of feeding. Your Zarya is way out in the open. She has no natural cover, and I'm pretty sure she's down both bubbles as well. Or she's at least down one bubble herself. So this is not great. She actually needs to be basically where you are. And then I would like you to skirt this way and at least play on cart, if not to the left side of cart, and kind of stop the cart from moving any further. And just get damage and do what you can to hold this position where like these two DPS and this Ana really can't do any damage beyond your shield, beyond the cart, or do any kind of impact. And they can't kill you off the cart, meaning they cannot push the cart unless they get high ground control or they push into the open space. So this is one way as a main tank that you can kind of control the fight, is saying, like, if you're going to kill me, you have to push the open space. Now, obviously, to kill you off of this position, they also have to push in the open space. But there's a difference between pushing in this open space when the Reinhardt's here and when the Reinhardt's here. Okay? The difference is here, they have to deal with one angle of attack. Here, they have to deal with two angles of attack, and there's a potential pin coming across this way, either into this wall or even all the way back here, that they have to be consciously aware of at all times. Now you're saying, well, you know, coach, I could pin this way whenever I want, right? Like there's a wall right here. Well, yeah, okay, you can pin this way whenever you want. But there's a difference between one angle of attack, which is the area which is true. So everyone is looking down that angle of attack. Therefore, when you pin, you're extremely vulnerable during the entire process, and them not knowing which direction to look, and then you pin back the other way. There's a difference between those two things. So baiting this open space, hoping that your DPS can control this upper ground, of course, baiting this open space is really your best bet as a Reinhardt player, not playing passively around this corner. And now there are things behind you. The other thing it gives you is if we do lose upper ground and they drop here, you do have the opportunity to pin back this way and potentially get a kill. But it also is a line of retreat, right? If you pin back this way, you're not going to die from this little tiny peak right here. You might get a pick against this corner, and then you have a line of retreat into this mini and out to your out to the bridge. So pretty much everything about this position is pretty strong. There are some weaknesses to that position, but it's basically it. I mean, the fight was lost.
How many is that again? Losing count. Okay. Wait for me! Go! I feel safe.
So we charge in to this corner, which is fine, right? And then we kind of push on a little bit, stop the cart, and then we kind of push back a little bit. There's nothing at your rank. There's nothing really that wrong with what you're doing. The only thing I will say is that your job here is to stop the cart. That's your job. Your second, and to stop the cart, you need to stay alive, right? So really, your job is to stay alive in the area, right? Your second job is actually to cut off lines of sight as much as humanly possible. So really, you need to be playing actually in this doorway. This doorway is okay, but weaker. And the reason it's weaker is kind of you're giving them this angle and this angle if you play this doorway. But there's also advantages, like, you know, if they do come this angle, you don't have to deal with two angles of attack. But you do have two main healers, both with ultimates, and, you know, I don't think there's much of a problem sustaining this position here. So because of that, I think it is fair to say that this is a good position for you, even on card, and kind of being able to skirt that way is a good position for you, as long as this bubble goes down, which it will quite quickly. But we need to be aware of that. Wow. That being said, like, you went to the left side there. There's nothing really that wrong with the left side. Like, it's not like, oh no, the left side is fine. There's nothing like it's like a plan that has an A grade and a plan that has an E grade, right? It's like, I mean, whatever. And they went ahead and used ultimates, and your Ana got picked for poor positioning and a rookie ultimate. Like,
excuse me for dropping in.
Okay, so a lot of your issue, so we switched to Brig, which actually does help quite a bit. A lot of the issue for your team right now, and I'll be honest, the vast majority of the issue for your team right now is the fact that you have very, 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 very little frontline pressure, right? You haven't had a DPS on the front line yet, okay? So they have a Torb and a Torb turret, so like this is like 1.5 people, right? And then they have an Ashe that's constantly staring down the front line, one. Okay, then they have a Zarya, that's another one on the front line, and then they have an Ana that's staring down the front line, which is another one. These are all pressure on the front line. They're not necessarily on the front line, but it's pressure on the front line. Lucio's kind of doing his own thing, so he's not really front line, and then Winston's doing a really clever thing in which he's generally actually pinching from off angles, but he's helping the front line a little bit, so we'll consider this like a half. So they have like 5 people on the front line consistently. This was a Moira. Now this does help, but this was a Moira. You really have 3, because you generally had the Ana, you, and the Zarya on the front line. So this is a problem. This is a frontline discrepancy. That's a problem because neither of your DPS are helping you in the slightest on the front line. And they're not getting picks on the off angle. Now, if these DPS were getting picks on the off angle, this would be a completely different story, because if they're getting picks on the off angle and we have a 3v5 on the front line, okay, what happens is, okay, fine, we have a 3v5 on the front line, but if this is the frontline presence, right? If this is the frontline presence, but the overall presence or the overall living, you know, starts as a 6v6, and then they get picks, right? And let's just say it's like a 6v4 and only one of those picks is on the front line. Okay, fine, this turns into a 3v4, but now these other two DPS can collapse back down onto the front line, and this can be a 5, so now you have a 5v4, right? And all you have to do is sustain on the front line to make this happen. The issue is that your DPS are not getting picks. Now, you may ask, well, coach, like, what do I do, right? Like how do I help this? I'm not playing damage, I'm playing main tank. Well, there's 2 ways you help this. One way you help it is that you attempt to hold a little bit further back on your front line so there's not as much pressure. So you give actually a little bit more space on your front line so there's not as much pressure, just hoping that either someone makes a mistake so that you can take advantage of it, or hoping that there's going to be a pick on that off angle, right? That's one thing that you could do. The other thing you can do is actually the exact opposite, is you can hold a very, very, let's call it aggressive frontline position in which you hope that your healing resources can keep you alive, in which you are the one you essentially count as 2 people as a Reinhardt. You say, fine, I don't have a DPS, I'll be DPS and main tank, and I will be my own frontline pressure as far as damage is concerned, and there's nothing you can do about it. So those are your two options. It really just depends on how much you trust your healers or how much you trust your damage. Because eventually you have to trust somebody. If you trust your healers more than your damage, play more aggressive. If you trust your damage more than your healers, play the opposite. But you have to trust somebody. It's not like you can just play this game solo. It's not possible. You have to trust someone to do something. Or actually, this is all assuming you have no comms. The best option is obviously to comm and say, hey, I don't have any help in the front line, or hey, I'm going to hold really aggressively, try to port resources.
Meteor strike.
Eventually we have to. So there's soft resetting here. Okay, so I will say, you've had ample opportunity to shatter, like, multiple times. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. We've wasted 1, 2, 3 ults in this fight already. But the thing is, if you waste 3 ults and you don't win the fight, is it actually that wasteful to use a 4th? Right? 3 ults equals 0 fight wins, right? Is a 0% usage for those ults, right? 4 ults for 1 fight win is a 25% fight win per ult, right? Which percentage is higher, right? Now, that doesn't mean dump your entire ult economy into a single fight, right? That, like, obviously this is only taking into account that one fight. It's not taking into account the fact that we're going to tank our entire ult economy. But we do have a Junkrat, which charges ult fairly quickly, and Tyre is actually a really good ult for how fast it charges. And we do have Graviton coming up. You know, and with the amount of damage in the game right now, and the amount of spam damage they have between Dynamite and a Torbjorn, Anna should get Nano back fairly quickly. So with all that said and done, it's probably okay to shatter here, right? So like you've had ample opportunity to shatter. The other thing you have ample opportunity for is to not like solo push forward. So like I don't know if we're trying to like choose like, hey, we're gonna take the really aggressive angle, but your DPS are getting picks, right? I think that's the second one. I think there's another person, like someone came back from spawn already. So your DPS are getting picks on the off angles and things. Like the Ashe is dead. Like we are getting picks. So because of that, I would actually rather you actually hold this corner and make sure your Anna stays up. And then shatter if you find an opportunity, which there already has been 2 or 3 of them, but shatter if you have an opportunity, clean it up, and then just go on from there. I would rather that opportunity, but you kind of stand alone on the cart. Now you survive it because there's not a lot of stuff, and now you go to cheddar. So I think just everything faster, right? Ooh, that's bad though. That's really, really poor. Oh, that's exceptionally bad. Okay. So remember how I said, like, in a vacuum, you know, you could use all your ults as long as it, you know, enters a fight win. Well, that's the fault of that mentality. When you go too deep in, right? When you go 5, 6 ults per fight or something, right? That's some bad mentality. Is like, oh, next fight they have Primal and Bob and Molten. What do we have? Oh crap, right? Yeah, so that's a problem. Your Zarya is not playing really well. Ooh, and your Junkrat got picked. Okay. Okay, so I would hide. By the way, the same thing occurs to me on this as it does on the last one. Is it's actually okay to hold this angle and let the rest of your team hold this angle, because again, you're setting up that crossfire and you're kind of baiting the open area again, right? This is a very common idea that you can do. And again, you're over here and you can charge back this way. Should you all, like, I've brought this up twice now, should you always do this? Absolutely not, right? Absolutely not. What if they have Shatter? What if they have you know, Grav? Pretty much anything, right? That your team needs your shield for. What if they have it, right? Well, okay, yeah, you should do this strategy then. You know, what if they've proven that they see this and they immediately speed the entire team into it, right? What if that happens? Because like I said it over here, because they're running this composition and there was like 4 people, including no tanks on the front line, back over here on this original choke, right? Well, what happens if they just speed into me over and over again? And when I try to, well, yeah, obviously don't do it then. Like there are positions to do it and there's positions not to do it. And there's realizations when and when not to do it. When there's a monkey on the other team, it's a little easier for you to do it because there's not the potential of a pin or a counter pin, or just a Reinhardt, you know, swinging fire strike, swinging and immediately doing 250 damage, you know, stuff like that. But so it's a little bit more likely. But I would actually like to see you over here because you are severely down alt economy, and when you're this far down in alt economy, it's not unlikely that you're going to need this open space, and it's also not unlikely that if someone walks in here, you're going to have the urge to pin, and it's not necessarily a bad call. So I would encourage that as much as you can. I am going to try to keep this video to like 30 minutes, by the way. So
do something.
The whole video, but I should give you plenty. So see how okay. So you were. Let's go back. So I'm attempting, by the way, I am attempting to answer your question more so than I am commenting on mechanics or really anything else on how do I utilize the tools that my team is really giving me. I'm trying to answer that question more than anything else. But so you do actually kind of go over here, but you don't go all the way over here to hold the cover, which is fine. You use the car as cover instead. And then the Bob comes in. So the issue your team is having is that this Winston's really good. And so he's creating a lot of pressure and a lot of space for his team. See how like spread out you guys are already just because this Winston went way over here. So the realization of where your team is, despite the fact that you have to look backwards for them, is a really important tool for a main tank. So realizing that your team says, okay, we are peeling, not counter diving or counter brawling, whatever you want to call it, is a really good realization for you. And so your team has bubbled you, and this Anna has like done some stuff for you. I don't know why this brick is up here, but this Anna has done some stuff for you. But you have to realize that your team is peeling, not counter diving. And so you hear this Bob come in, resource coming in, but you should realize at some point that your team is nowhere near you, and we need to get out, right? We need to stop holding this open space choke, and we need to start holding either this corner or this open space choke, right? We need to hold one or the other because this is not going to work anymore because our team is backed up to try to kill this Winston. And whether that decision is right or wrong is kind of irrelevant to you. It's just that the fact that they make that decision is now making it so that you have to back up, so that it is a wrong decision to stay here. So whether their decision is right or wrong doesn't really matter to you. It just makes it so that one of your decisions is right and one of your decisions is wrong, and staying here is wrong. Oops, sorry.
Bob, do something.
Zarya is at a weird offense. Zarya's really not playing. Like, there's no reason. I mean, I suppose there is a reason to have both tanks over here because it is a pinch, right, into the open area, and you do have a line of retreat, and you actually do have a mega line of retreat as well. But as soon as like your Doom and your Brig and the Junk and the Anna are like all back here, kind of dealing with a Doomfist, that's a really good turret actually. With a Doomfist, sorry, with a monkey, it leaves your tanks out to dry. So like, there's just a massive miscommunication. I don't know whether you talk in voice chat or not, but if not, I would highly encourage you to, because this is just a very good example of miscommunication. Is the four squishies on your team have basically turned around and said we're dealing with this, while the two tanks have said, hey, we're holding the open space, right? That's basically what's happened. So it's very difficult to get this to work.
This is going to hurt.
Oh no. Okay. Okay. So she nanos you here, and don't get me wrong, I know why she nanos you here, and the idea in a vacuum is not a bad one. The idea in a vacuum is that the cart is pushed up quite far onto a corner that we want to hold. I just lost my other healer, like from the Anna's perspective, I just lost my other healer. I am quite low. I'm assuming without a nade resource. I am quite low, and this is the final fight of this like stretch, and my Reinhardt has shatter. Let me nano him, see if he can go make a play, considering he's down healing with his shatter. So we can maybe hold this off for a little bit, or at least maintain long enough that I can get, health back. Maybe Junkrat can get a pick on an off angle, and the rest of our team can come back. It's not a bad mentality. The issue is the Torbolt. So you have to be aware of things. You can't just take everything in a vacuum. So in a vacuum, like, her decision's fine, but then you add the Torbolt to this decision, and it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Stand in the Torbolt? Like, it's fine. Nano has reduced damage. It's not that reduced. Like, you can't just stand in a Torbolt. Just like you can't stand in a Hanzo Dragon. Like, you can't just stand here. Not to mention, you want a nano. You want a nano in a position where the other team cannot disengage from the nano easily. And not only can the other team disengage from the nano easily, they've already done it. They're back here. Like, they've already disengaged from the nano. So they torb ulted, so he can't move forward. And not only can he not move forward, the other team doesn't even have to move back because they've already done it. Right? So this is a complete lack of understanding of positioning from your Ana. And there, you don't chase bad ults with worse. So the worst thing possible you can do here is do exactly what the Ana wants you to do, which is move forward and try to shatter something. That's the worst thing you can do, because you're trading you're compounding a bad nano with what is certain to be a bad shatter. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is say, okay, fine, let me use this nano to sustain, right? Let me use this nano sustain and to get to this corner, walking through the stuff if you have to, I guess, or come back, right? Or go around and come back. I don't know. And sustain so that when these guys stop their soft reset and we regroup, it's at least, because this break's going to be dead, it's at least a 5v6, and I have Shatter in a position I want Shatter in, okay? That's the best thing you can do. What I don't want to see, and you do seem to go regroup, and we do get a pick on Zarya. This is a bad chase, though. This is a bad chase. Don't chase this. Never chase a Lucio as a Reinhardt, ever, pretty much. I mean, not even pretty much. I can't really think of a position where it's a good idea. Just never do this, ever, okay? A Brig can handle her own. Like, the Ana's already dead. There's nothing you do about this. A Brig can handle your own. You're fine, right? Go regroup. Let the Brig heal you. She'll probably rally. See if you can rally, considering the Torb's out of position. See if you can rally. And see if you can get a good shatter off and win at least sustain a team fight. Maybe slowly whittle the enemy team down enough where you're going to win the game. Yeah. So your Diva's out of mech now, and they're gonna, like, this is, that was a bad chase. Yeah, I mean, okay, but yeah, no, like, it's just a bad chase. Like, you do everything you just did, but you don't chase. You don't help your Diva, so your Diva's not out of suit at the same time. You literally do everything other than chase there, and you win this fight. And now your team's just having to use more and more and more ultimates. So we switched to a Winston. I think this is a good switch, honestly. Because I think here's the thing, is your entire team is based off of this, like, go dive mentality, right? So this was a Genji, but he switched to a Junkrat, and he's not really doing anything on the Junkrat. But this Doomfist is trying to go in the back line. This Diva's probably trying to go into the back line. Your Brig doesn't really know what she's doing, and then the Ana can kind of position from any angle. So I like the Winston switch. Now, I liked it more when everyone else was on the original. When this was a Genji, when this was a Moira, and when this was a Zarya, I liked it more. I liked the switch. I would have liked the switch more if this was what they were still on, because it allows you to help your DPS with whatever they're doing, so that you really commit to those off angles and you really commit to those pinching on the main angles with the Zarya, and then two main healers. But it's not bad now either, because the thing about your Reinhardt is it's proving to be slow. Mostly because you don't have a Lucio, but also because you tend to chase or tend to find yourself in bad positions where you have to spend half the fight getting into a good position. So I will say that. We'll go like one more. Okay, so you just started a turret and kind of like pokey damage. Okay, so we're getting close to 30 minutes. I know we didn't even get like one half done basically, but I mean that's kind of how VOD reviews go. But I just wanted to say before we're kind of done, I think I gave you quite a bit to work on. So just to review, number one thing is make sure you're like baiting the open space, and not just standing around corners. So like, yes. Should you hold corners as a Reinhardt? Yes, absolutely you should hold corners. Should you always hold corners as a Reinhardt? Debatable. So not really. Now should you always hold the exact same corner as the rest of your team as your Reinhardt? No, not always, right? There are times where you should, and there's times where you shouldn't. If the other team has ultimates or any other character cooldowns, if they're speeding onto you really fast and you're being caught out, whatever the case may be, you can kind of figure it out from there. But bait open space. Make sure that you're finding the opportunities to be what you need to be for your team. To pick a plan. Pick a plan. So what I mean by this is, are you playing passively and waiting for your DPS to get picks, or are you going to play aggressively and say, if you come in this area, I will start swinging? Okay, which one are you really trying to do? Because we never really picked one or the other. We were kind of like lukewarm. We're like, okay, we're kind of aggressive, but like the moment you get aggressive on me, I'm gonna back off. And it's like, well, okay, which one are we actually doing here? Because it's difficult to tell. And then number 3, and I think honestly the most impactful advice I'm going to give you, because these are good coaching tips, but they're not really like, they're difficult to really put into practice consistently. Number 3 is know/communicate with team. Okay. So I think this is the number one thing. So obviously communicate with team. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, I know it's obvious, but the fact that your team was peeling, the fact that your team was trying to play off angles, and they were not countering, they were not frontlining, they were anything, you have to communicate with them and start that communication. Be like, okay, what are we doing? Blah blah blah. I'm here. Start that communication. The other thing is know your team. Know where they are. Know what they're doing. Be aware of what they're doing. Don't just expect them to be on you. Because the way you play main tank very much looks like you're just expecting the rest of your team to fall in line because I am big main tank, hear me roar. Right? And yeah, okay, fine. The main tank sets the front angle, and it should set a lot of the team fights and blah, 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 right? But be aware. You are solo queuing, or I assume you're solo queuing. Be aware of what your team needs from you and where they are and what they're doing, because they're not, especially if you're solo queuing, they're not going to adhere to you. And if you want to climb, if you want to learn how to be a better player, and really if you want to learn how to be a better main tank, you're going to have to start figuring out how to adhere to their gameplay. Figure out how to be the best main tank for these particular group of 5 players that you happen to be playing with, right? And I think that's the main challenge of main tank is, at the same time, you're the leader, you're setting the tone, you're setting the pace, you're setting the positioning, you're the most difficult person to move for the enemy team to move you out of a space. But at the same time, you kind of have to figure out where you can and cannot do things based on what your team is doing. So it's symbiotic in the most basic way of, yes, your team is reliant on you to do all the main tank things, but if you're not doing the main tank things where they think you should be doing the main tank things, or if they're not doing you're not doing main tank things where they can support the main tank things, then it falls apart. So yeah, they need you, and you have that part down. They need you. You're good, but you also need them. So be very, very aware of that. So know your team, know where their positioning is, know whether they're peeling or coming. I promise they're trying to play, and they're trying to play well. Did your Zarya play well? Absolutely not. Did Ultra, your other healer, play well? Not really. There was a bad nano here. This guy's done nothing the entire game. Yeah, okay, I get it. It is a difficult game, I will openly admit. But it's not GG go next, okay? It is not that bad of a game yet. It can turn into it if everyone starts giving up. But it's not that bad of a game. Your Doomfist has proven that he's able to get a pick or two a fight. Your Diva / Zarya has proven, yeah, okay, I can put damage down at least, right? Your Ana has proven that she can pump healing out to a certain degree. Okay, so your Junkrat's proven that he can get a kill or two, an important kill or two with a tire. So like, it's not lost, but you have to start communicating and knowing your team. Okay, so I hope that was useful to you, and for everyone else, I hope that was useful to you too. But thanks, guys, and have a good day.